All right. Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Caroline Rogers. I'm the coordinator for disability outreach here at the UNC Charlotte Career Center. And today we're talking about universal design in the workplace and how that goes along with employee development and growth. Our panelists today are Jacob Levy, Catherine McCord, and Geraldine O'Donnell. Jacob, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure. And again, thank you so much for this opportunity. So my name is Jacob Levy. I am a neurodivergent career coach as well as a special education teacher and speaker. I live in Metro Detroit. I have two daughters, married. Um, yeah, that's me.
All right. Now, Catherine.
Hey everybody, so I'm Catherine McCord and I am an international speaker as well as a national HR consultant and people operations consultant, and I actually literally wrote a book about universal workplace design, and I'm very excited to be discussing this topic today.
Wonderful. And now, Geraldine.
So that's amazing. Congratulations, Catherine. So I'm Jerlyn, and I'm experience design director with a passion for accessible design and a wealth of diverse experiences. I'm a professional member of the IAAP and an Adobe community expert. I bring expertise in creating inclusive digital experiences, and beyond my professional achievements, also a published author, illustrator, endurance athlete, and I run multiple marathons and ultra marathons. And I'm also a mom.
Hey, fantastic. We're so happy to have you here. We have a couple of questions for you all. So the first question I'm going to ask is, how can universal design make professional development programs more accessible for all employees, including those with disabilities or neurodivergent conditions, especially in digital spaces?
Free for all? Okay, I'm gonna just go for it. This is one of the most interesting topics because universal design has not historically really been applied to the workplace, and so I think it's really important to understand, what's involved in universal design. I'm sure Geraldine will go into that quite a bit because that's one of her specialties too. So I'm going to leave some of the technical aspects to her. But flexibility and broad design and sustainability are three of the key elements to universal design. And the flexibility and the broad design is where it really starts to help people with neurodiversities and with disabilities, because it's basically allowing for different work styles and different needs just already in the design. So it's not an accommodation, it's not an extra step. We are just already prepared that you're going to do things differently, and that's okay. It makes it much more seamless. And it also takes away a lot of the emotional pressure on people. It frees people up to just do as they need. And by the way, this works for everybody, even just for people with different learning and communication styles, not even full on diversities, but just different styles. It works really beautifully. And one of the elements that I've also implemented as part of my personal version of universal workplace design is to make accommodations into standard options. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but basically just having a system already in place so that people can say, this tool will be really helpful. Bam, we got it. And on we go.
Yeah, I just think about like multiple means of engagement. So yes, as Catherine touched on, just different ways. Some people have, especially digital materials, having things compatible for different users. One of the examples I always love sharing is I I have a Peloton and I took a class all in German and didn't realize it. And because I had the sound off, I had an infant, so I always kept the sound off, but I had closed captions on. I'm not a hard of hearing person, but look how beautiful it works without me knowing. So I love experiences like that, just kind of predicting or anticipating that someone's gonna have a different experience than you are, and just know that you whatever you come up with is going to help anyone. Again, my situation was like, I'm a mom with an infant, but you probably thought you were solving this for someone who's hard of hearing, but you know, you weren't.
Yeah, I like that. Geraldine, one thing I will say that like universal design, as soon as you ask the question, it was already implemented because you put it in a text, right? So like, people have preferences, whether they have a disability or not. I feel like universal design, I mean, it's literally called universal. It should benefit everyone. Um, I mean, there's so many things from like screen readers are a great example. Now they have Chrome extensions where it's literally like that. Like they're free. It's not this whole big thing. It's literally you're accommodating someone, right? So yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to do it. Using this like simple language can be very accommodating because some people, I mean, I've literally heard people make up words in meetings in like corporate America. I have to like, I'm like, what did they just say? Um, so yeah, simple language, screen readers, captions, transcripts, like those are just a couple ways to benefit these programs.
Yeah, and I like that you touched on making up languages. I get that a lot in corporate America. Like I think allowing people other ways to express themselves is helpful. So that's a very good one. Whether it's written, if it's verbal or visual, that's also great to make them be more inclusive. Um, Maybe personalize like features when you're creating digital experiences. Like for example, maybe you need something high contrast. Um, Let's see what else. Like maybe built-in support. Like you constantly want to get feedback when you're creating any tool, especially for the digital space. So just understanding your users, that's also going to be beneficial.
Absolutely. And even using tools like UserWay, which can, and they're just one example of a type of tool that does this, that can manipulate sites and different softwares that you're on for your personal needs. And I hear people say, well, if you just design accessibly, it won't be a problem. And I'm going, eh. But what works for one does not always work for another. And so that's not a wrong way to think. You should design as accessibly as humanly possible, but there's always going to be needs that you cannot predict and having, or that you cannot, or they're conflicting. One person needs this and another person needs this. So having a tool that can manipulate what you're looking at for your needs, and even Jacob mentioned like PDF readers, things like that, it makes all the difference and designs more broadly and allows people to be more effective, more productive, and allows everything to flow a lot more smoothly.
Yeah, and this is why the feedback is critical because I love to say
Mhm.
that I design for people I know and I don't know yet. So yes, we can make things accessible, but we always find that like random situations that you just never thought about. And
Yep.
actually one of the reasons why I even ended up trying to understand about accessibility is because I met a woman who I designed a website, and when I met her in person, she actually dropped her phone to the floor and typed with her toes. She's a 6 foot woman looking at my content from 6 feet away, typing with her toes because she had a mobility issues with her arms, and that's how she navigated her life. So this was like an insight I did not
Wow.
realize. But yes, I'm designed for accessibility, but we also like had to understand maybe her fonts need to be a lot bigger because she's seeing it from that distance, or maybe the interface, like the tappable buttons, needed to be a certain size. So just like know that, like think of people you know and you just don't know yet, and be curious about them. I
Mhm.
think that's helpful.
Yes.
Wonderful. Y'all all made such great points, and I love how you all talked about like specific technologies that have been developed because of like accommodations and accessibility and like screen readers and all that stuff. Yes, but also things like electric toothbrushes, like things we would never even think about that are like were accommodations made for people to just like be able to use things a lot better or like access that like tool that they weren't able to use before. So I really liked how you all went into talking about technology. Um, for our next question, what are the main barriers to career advancement for employees with disabilities or neurodivergent conditions, and how can universal design help overcome them? And whoever would like to answer first.
I have so many opinions, but Jacob, I actually want to kick this one over to you and get some of your opinions on this.
Sure. So in terms of barriers, oh my God. I'll give a personal experience. So like this isn't even advancement. This was like just getting my foot in the door. So one of the barriers I had was um you know how when you fill out a job application, they have like where you can check the box, right? Like the EEOC if you have a disability. Well, sometimes they miss that box, right? Or like you check it and they don't actually receive it. So like you have one perception and an employer has another and they might not know. And I faced that issue and like down the road it was discovered of my disability, which is invisible. So I guess the takeaway is like you have to be your own self advocate. Nobody's going to advocate for you. Like, and that's that sounds very raw, but it's the truth. Like, I never took a class in college about like disability advocacy or accommodations and modification. No, uh, you kind of just you kind of just learn it like as you go, especially in the workforce. I mean, now there's a lot more support. You can seek out inclusive employers, you can do informational interviews, you can ask way ahead of time, for the purposes of saving time. It saves a ton of time. You don't want to work for a company that's not inclusive, and you don't want to find out day one that they're not inclusive. It's just a big waste of time. Um, so I'd say in terms of main barriers to advancement, like people don't speak up, people don't ask questions. Most companies they have like weekly check-ins, right, with your manager. Not across the board, but typically most companies do that. That is the best opportunity every single week that you can, it's kind of like a mini interview that you can ask them questions. How am I doing? What are some goals I can work on? Blah blah. Because if they don't, if your manager doesn't ask you that, like this is what we can work on, it's never going to happen. You have to advocate for yourself. And you have to ask like the hard questions to your manager, like how can I improve? How can I, what am I like, what can I work on? Like you got to press them a little bit. And that's one thing that like I learned the hard way that I did not do. So now I've totally changed my like perception and how I help job seekers.
I would have to say encounter managers who are disinterested, so that's a barrier. So I'm happy that you have a positive experience, but I've also had to advocate for other people, not on my team necessarily, and say, hey, did you know that this, like, I'll give an example. So because of lockdown, we were all on webcams, and I've actually been in meetings where there's like cameras on, and then I have to say, like, actually, some people would not appreciate seeing themselves like this all the time. I'm fine with it. I manage a team, so I'm on camera. I expect it, but I had to be very respectful of my teammates who did not, or my direct reports who didn't want to have the cameras on. Everyone's situation was different. Some people actually don't like seeing themselves on the screen, and they probably have like a disability that they don't want to talk to you about. They feel uncomfortable looking at themselves. But also, I had a situation where I was a new mom with an infant, and I had lots of situations where there could be an HR incident while I have my camera on. So I had to let my manager know about that. Like maybe in a meeting, if she's saying cameras on, that's probably a waste of time or very disrespectful to people who are in the situation. So I was that person to advocate for them. But yeah, like bringing up bring up these things are important because some people don't know what they don't know. So I want to give them that slight pass. But I think one of these things that we can educate like the workforce about is that, hey, just because we have this situation with Zoom or our virtual meeting doesn't mean everyone is going to have that experience that they're having. So I think that would be helpful, like educating them on it.
Absolutely. I think too, like a lot of times people do not understand how policies and procedures really affect people's chance for advancement and how not having universal design really stunts people's growth. So a lot of times I've come into organizations and I've been told this person's a bottom performer, they're not thriving, we may have to get rid of them or they're only mediocre. And when I get to the point that I come around and I talk to everybody, I figure out and I kind of watch them, I figure out that what's actually going on is that this person is being forced to work in a way that is not natural for them and does not flow well for them. And so they're struggling because they're being asked to do things the way another person likes to do them. Well, that's just not very practical. And it's not exclusive to people with disabilities or neurodiversities, but it certainly applies to them as well. And so ensuring that you keep everything mission focused, and that's kind of how I like to look at it, is mission or goal focused. What is the objective? As long as that objective is getting achieved, who cares how you get there? Unless there's a legality you need to address or something like that, just be flexible. It does not matter. For instance, I have a completely different way of doing like career, the few times I've career coached. I'm not a professional career coach, but the few times I've done that resume writing to how Jacob does it. His way is wonderful. my way is good too. But it's just different ways of how we get there. And that's very true. And I've done it. I saw that in collections. I've seen it in sales. I've seen it in IT work. How you get there should not be so much the goal. It should be about the final work. So being flexible in that. And so when you label someone a poor performer, they obviously then cannot advance, right? Same thing with communication and embracing different communication styles. For instance, a lot of people with neurodiversities are blunt. They're not rude. They're just direct. They're just like, here's the information. There's no fluffy stuff around it, right? There's none of that stuff that makes us feel all warm and fuzzy inside, but they're not being rude. And so providing that education and teaching people to realize that direct is not rude, because we were all taught that. And so I do not fault people for feeling that way, because we were all programmed that way. And for some people, their natural biological programming is that they need a little fluffy stuff around that. And that needs to be accommodated and worked with too. But understanding different communication styles, whether it's bluntness, whether it's needing questions asked a little bit different way, that type of thing, it's really, really important. So that's another potential barrier, is not understanding communication, but also workplaces not communicating their expectations. If you want to advance, this is what you need. It should just be laid out.
Yeah, I love that you touched on that, because my during lockdown also, our communication was an interesting topic with my manager, because I just like write things and move along. And he's like, no, Jerlyn, you might need to say like, hi, how was your weekend? How's it going? I was like, that is such a waste of my time. So actually one of the things I have part of my workflow now is that, so I work with generative AI a lot now. So I actually use it to write my emails more tactfully, because I know it needs the fluffiness and I just don't have it in me to write the fluffiness. So I craft what I want, and I was like, write it more tactfully and then move along.
I love that. See, that's a beautiful version of using technology and an accommodation. And another great accommodation I'm just going to throw out there too for email writing and communication. They were originally called Storied, and now I think it's called VNote. And it's still I believe there is still a free version. There's also a paid version. And it's wonderful. It not only listens to what you say and records it, but it'll help you organize it, find themes and all of that. And so for people who ramble, people with ADHD, people with autism, people who just kind of go on and don't think about it, or just kind of need to vent and then process it later, this is a wonderful, wonderful tool for communication. I even have had some folks tell me that they use it to communicate with their spouses and children, and that it's gone much better.
I'm writing this down.
So am I.
So happy that you talked about the bluntness, because I didn't even realize, like, I was like, wait, it's just like me sending a text. But no, it's like, if at work, some people are receiving it differently. I'm like, right. So with my team, with extra efforts of emojis, or really, how was your weekend? It's going to take me 5 minutes to know about this project, but that's okay. I know you need that.
And emojis, I think, have saved a lot of our lives. The folks of us, those of us that are like that, like if I can just put a smiley face next to it, now people understand what I'm communicating.
I'm like,
And it
wait,
makes our lives so much easier.
me being extra smiling. Like, what's going on? No, this is
Yeah.
me.
The only thing I will say about emojis, because I've seen it backfire. So you know how
That
emojis
too.
are very close together on a keyboard. So sometimes people use the wrong emoji. Like they mean like a happy face, but it's really like a kissy face. Or
Oh
just
yeah.
something just like, I don't think that's what you meant to your boss. Like,
And then you have to come see Catherine in HR.
there you go. There you
Also,
go. So
I've
just
seen them like in different generations. So like they're like I have a lot of Gen Z who have certain emojis that they use and are Gen Xers, and I'm like in the middle. So I sometimes have to tell our Gen Xers like, hey, I don't think that's what you wanted to write.
Yeah.
But
I don't think we quite got there. But then, curious conversation, right? Ask people, is this what you meant?
exactly.
And I like to just ask people, just like, hey, okay, this is what you said. I'm not sure that that's what you meant. And just kind of go with that.
well,
Oh,
the
I
nice
love
thing
this.
too about when it's written is you have a paper trail. So
Yes.
you can ask for clarification written, and
Mhm.
it's not hearsay. It's not he said, she said, it's documented.
Yeah, that's actually
Yes.
my preference. That's my preference of communication. Like I especially after a meeting, I will always have a follow-up just so like, hey, this is what we
Yes.
spoke about and just like for clarification and that's it. Like just so
And
that
for the universal design aspect of that, if visual is not your thing, which it obviously is for the three of us, if visual is not your thing, then you can also have that text read to you through most apps. I know Slack can do that. There's a few others that can do that. And then there are also apps that are plugins that you can put on your browser that will read it aloud to you so that then you can interact with it. And then you can just speak back to it and it'll type back to the person. So there's great ways to interact that way.
now I'm actually my company is getting used to Fireflies on their webinars. So you get a summary. Also when I join meetings now with Copilot, you can summarize the meeting and things like that. So I'm happy that we have these new tools that are being helpful.
There.
The transcripts tool has like saved my life because like when people are talking and having a conversation, they'll reference things that happened in the past. And my executive dysfunction is just like that thing that happened 5 minutes ago. Yeah, we don't remember that. Um, so having the transcript makes it so easy because I'm like, oh, I can go back and find what they said and I understand everything and it's amazing. Um, so that having the ability to do that has helped so much, and I can't imagine like if we still didn't have this stuff, how would things be going, especially with how COVID went and everything like that. So I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah.
Um yeah. Oh, also, when you guys were talking about how like just letting people work the way they work as long as they get it done, just let them do it. Um, I believe in that wholeheartedly. And actually, in a previous panel, someone mentioned that they send out a little document when they get into their workplace, and it's called a working with me document.
Mhm.
And it essentially tells them, I work from this time to this time. I communicate like this. I like music. I don't like this. This is my communication style. And I honestly think every workplace should do that because I know for a fact I like listening to music when I work, but some people may not. So,
I would need you to get headphones. No,
yeah.
as
Yeah,
a
I'd be like, girl, I need to just put those headbuds in. Just put
yeah,
those earbuds
Yeah.
in. It's fine.
but I
So,
think
like, if I put my headphones in, but my coworker doesn't work with music, that's an easy medium for both of us.
yeah,
However, if you're in an office that plays music 24/7, that might be an issue. So, like,
I've had
just
that too.
allowing people to make that choice is
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
by the way, I do love those documents. That is something I do something similar, not exact, but I do something very similar with organizations and it works beautifully. People love it.
yeah, with my team, I personally ask them what their communication style and things like that and how they prefer to work. I'm not sure how anyone would receive that, Carolyn, if you gave that document and you stepped into the door, but I know for my
Yeah.
team, I would appreciate it. Um, but no, I think yeah, at the end of the day, for me, our company has specific goals. So yes, that's what I focus on. So that's why when my previous manager told me about, hey, maybe be a little fluffy with my message, I was like, I am just getting things done. And I was like, wait, I'm not related to you guys or anything. But no, it's like maybe for workplace just being a little harmonious. And I know I care about you guys too. Like we care about getting the work done. Um, but yeah, at the end of the day, whatever they're comfortable with, they're meeting deadlines. If they want to work late at night, that's them. I mean, I have a child, so I have to actually manage my time a specific way. And everyone knows that I'm not free within like maybe 4 to 5. I'm picking up my kids, so do not look for me. So there's moments like that that my team needs to be aware of. And yeah, I'm happy to accommodate everyone else with the working styles.
hmm Establishing those work boundaries is amazing.
Absolutely.
For our next question, it is, how can mentoring programs be made more accessible and effective for employees with diverse needs, especially in virtual or hybrid formats?
The first thing I like to say about mentorship programs and any kind of employee engagement, actually, I mean, this is a perfect tie-in because we're just kind of talking about just general engagement with each other. Number one, don't be obsessed with employee engagement. Some people, one of the reasons that they have remote jobs is that they are not particularly fond of employee engagement. They are wonderful team members. They're highly dedicated to their work. They will collaborate with you left and right, but they don't really care if you have kids, if you have puppies, if you have kitties. They just don't care. And it's not that they're rude or ugly. That's just not what they're there for. And that's okay. And embracing that. And for some people, it's because they just don't have the spoons, right? They just don't have the energy. And so that's it, or just a different personality. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind. But tying into that, a great way even to engage somebody like that is often to have a particular mentor with whom they're connected, so that they are still very connected to the team and all that, but they've selected a person and that person has selected them. And I've done some really cool mentorship programs. And this helps with universal design too, because again, it gives you more feedback. It gives you more chance to collaborate, to create symbiotic work cells, which basically just means you have several people coming together to perform a body of work. And it works really beautifully. And so I like to, when I'm doing mentorship programs, I like to have, it's almost like a dating app situation. Like it's like, here's this person and this is what they've got going on, and here's this person and here's what they've got going on. And it's not just about having interdepartment, in your department support. It's maybe you want to advance to a different department, so you want a mentor that's in that department. And maybe you have autism and you want somebody else with autism, or maybe you have a new baby, and you want another mom who will understand the challenges of working and all of that. And so having the personal details that people want to share, right, lined up with the professionals and what they're interested in mentoring and what they're interested in receiving is really important. And it's been funny because I even had a situation where somebody wanted to be mentored and they wanted to advance to a department that didn't have any open mentors. Well, somebody else in the HR arena said, you know what, I used to work in that department and I'm looking to mentor somebody who wants to move up. I've got you. So it was the most bizarre thing. They ended up with an HR mentor to go over into project space. But it absolutely does work out that way sometimes. But it really, again, yielding to the universal aspect. There are all different reasons that can be helpful. It expands employee engagement to a different level, leaving room for different people who want different levels of flexibility. And it allows for personal relationships within the workplace that are still professionally linked and also will tie into productivity and effectiveness, which is great.
Yeah, I think you covered most of what I was hoping to.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, this is great. No, because we yeah, like also just paying attention to my team. I'll give an example. Like one person's interested in strategy, so I had to actually make sure that I'm connecting with someone in another team for strategy because I don't work in strategy. Sometimes I have to find external mentors as well because sometimes the company doesn't have it. So just thinking of like different ways or forms for that mentorship. Because I have actually told some people on my team maybe the mentorship is not internal. You might have to find a special coach for you to bring that person in. Maybe it's a course somewhere where you can connect with others, a networking opportunity, things like that. So just like understanding people, being a bit flexible about scheduling too is helpful. Um, yeah, I think that's all the points because Catherine already covered a lot of us are thinking.
But
Jacob,
yeah,
yeah.
like just to touch on what Jerlyn and Catherine were saying. So I had I don't know if it was like direct mentoring, but I was part of a cohort. It was a boot camp, an IT boot camp. And so it was like temp to permanent. So it was like a 6 month boot camp and then you get hired on full time. But the group itself was also a mentoring group because everyone was coming from different fields. Like there were educators, there were like just different backgrounds. So another way to support mentoring groups is like you could do group mentorship. You could do reverse mentorship. The last role I was in, I've never seen this, but you can you can do like skip level meetings. So like you have a manager and then you can like you can interact with their boss. You can ask their boss questions, not to grill them or anything or get like negatively, but you could literally do a skip level for more mentorship. So there's like so many different ways you can do it. And I think that can be very inclusive. Um, Not only like, you can ask for different mediums, like I just want to do via chat. I just want to like no camera, this, that, like the typical kind of universal design. But I think the word mentorship, especially through the pandemic, has like morphed into different
Mhm.
meanings, and that's okay.
I think it has. I think that's a really important point to make. And I think that the more that people have that kind of support and the more that we start to understand how people want to grow and advance. So I like to do a lot of career mapping with people when I come into organizations and part of the HR process and people ops. And one thing that is commonly misunderstood, and I know this from years of working in talent acquisition and really building out an understanding of talent and what it takes to do each job. There's this weird mentality that's developed. I know how we got there, but that's a whole other talk. Where you need to progress from this level to individual man, to small team, direct team leadership. Then you go into director. Then you go into VP. Not so fast. These are completely different skill sets. Okay. These are completely different. And so having these mentorships can also help you identify where your strengths are. And again, going back to the universal design aspect of being flexible, why does a person have to go into direct leadership before they go into a director level position or VP level position? What are they best at? Where should they be? Where are their strengths? So for instance, I'm a very decent individual one, like direct team manager, but it's not my specialty. My specialty is the executive level or also the hands-on work because I'm still kind of a nerd and love to do all that stuff. But that's kind of where I like. I'm a very good manager, but it's not my strength, to be honest. It's not. And it took a lot of work to get to that point because my initial response to humans was, why are you talking to me? And you can't be that way if you're going to be a supervisor. Now I worked on it. That's very much not my attitude now, but it took a lot of effort for me to become a very good manager. It was not natural. So I like to tell people, but I say just excel. Like the second I could do executive type work, I just got it and I flew. And it had nothing to do with that progression because my progression, I actually went from one to the other and then back. And so making sure that we understand what people's talents are and utilizing those mentorships to help career map and to be flexible in our design so that we're putting people where they should be, not necessarily having some weird progression that we've just arbitrarily decided is good, is really important. It's another great way to use mentorships.
Yeah, 100%. Because in my field, it seemed to be the only way to move up was to become a manager and like have these teams, and then realizing, yep, you should just be an individual contributor. It's fine. We still need you. Um, yeah, because same with you, Catherine. Like, managing is the most difficult part of my career. It is so difficult. And just like those email, just like those messages that I send, I'm just like, oh my goodness, this is the problem today. This is really the problem. No, I've had moments like that, but I was just like, oh no, everything's great. Okay, we can talk through this. Like it's really hard to always show up like that. So like accommodating that for mentorship is helpful because coming to the realization that you're better as an individual contributor is great. I think I'm a decent manager. I'm still hands-on. I love that because I feel like that's the way that I keep future proofing my career is like learning from my team. So I encourage that, and I love working with people who can respect me for the knowledge I have. So I don't have to be an expert like they are, but I understand their job. So that's why I love being hands-on. Or I am the one advocating for them in another room when I'm like, oh, this person is amazing at this. Let's bring her on. Like, so that's why I'm still very involved. But yeah, some people realize as they're moving up, that's not what they're meant to do, or maybe they need to have a completely different career path. And I love the skip mentorship thing, Jacob, because I never thought about that. Like, for example, I would never want my boss's job. I especially do not want her boss's job. But I had the ability to see both of their day to day, and that's why I know. So I'm happy that you had that opportunity.
Absolutely.
I think mentorships also like show you things that you might have been scared of before and actually build up that confidence. Because like in this role, actually, I had a mentor. She's moved on to a different job now. I miss her so much. Um, but if not for her, I don't think I would have been able to organize this panel because I wasn't good at networking and I didn't know how to network and I was so nervous and I didn't know how to talk to people. And then she showed me, and she showed me her way of doing it. She actually walked me to other people around the office and showed me different ways of doing it in case it didn't work for me. Um, so it's just so important because like you might be out of your comfort zone a little and you might be like, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing," but that person's there to be like, "Hey, you may not know what you're doing, but here's how I do it. So
Yeah,
let's
and
try it this way."
you're probably bringing your own thing into it as well, because when I'm mentoring people, even on my own team, or I also mentor outside of work as well. Um, One of the things I offer is like I do it this way. However, what are your ideas? Because while I'm managing, I love listening to feedback from my teams to know how I can improve. Because I may think I'm doing the best job in the world, but they might tell me different, and then I have to work on that. So like whoever I'm preparing for my position, I encourage them to bring their own perspective because they might be, especially as a middle manager, I get the I get the benefit of seeing what my direct reports do and also what leadership does. And my direct reports may not have that insight into leadership, so now I have to like prepare them for that. And they might come up with great ideas that leadership is not thinking about, and now I have to bring that to them. So I think it's great that although like your mentor did things her way and you probably didn't think you could, I'm sure you're bringing different perspectives and positivity to your role.
Yeah, we do things a lot differently, but they still work. So the next question I had actually y'all kind of answered. It was about like what managers and mentors can do to better support their um mentees.
I do
Uh
have an additional thought though on that.
okay, cool.
That I was thinking of while Geraldine was talking, and actually it started with when Jacob was talking, and then it kind of went from there.
I'll put this question in chat and we can just continue it with that.
Okay, we'll just keep going. The one of the biggest things to me, and this also plays into the universal design because it's about flexibility, is managing people differently based on who they are. And so one of the things when I got what I consider to be pretty good at at one-on-one management, one of the things I am very good at is teaching. And I got that because I come from a long line of educators on both sides. And so when I was training, I was building out a team, a national recruitment team, And I was training, and I like to hire people who don't have experience. I like to give them an opportunity. I like to train them from the ground up. It's super fun. And I had one experienced recruiter who was also there helping me train. And I had one young lady, and she was so smart and she was so good, and she was in her training. And one day she comes to me and she starts asking me all these questions that I knew she knew the answer to. And I was working, and I purposefully did not look up at her. And she went on, and then she kind of stopped and looked at me, realizing I wasn't paying very much attention. And I looked up at her and I said, "Don't you know the answers to all of these questions?" And she kind of went, "Yeah." And I said, "So go do your job." And she goes, "Okay." And I put my head back down. And my other recruiter came over and he goes, "Why did you do that? That was so mean. You can't talk to her like that." Well, I said, "Don't say anything to her and come see me at the end of the day." And he goes, okay. And so he comes back and she comes in at the end of the day, just grinning ear to ear, going, "Thank you for saying that. I knew what I needed to do. I just needed somebody to tell me it was okay to do it." And I was like, "You're welcome. It's okay." And I had other people that I had to handhold because, they had been through different things and had really, they really had some traumatic experiences and such, including with leadership. And so they needed a little bit more handhold, and needed the soft and the fuzzy, right? And so I, kind of put on the mom voice and gave the fluffies for that. And so it's different for everybody. So just knowing your people, paying attention to them, and sometimes having them tell you what they need is super important too. You hit on that, Caroline. But I think that's an important part of supporting people, both with disabilities and otherwise, and in a very universal way.
Yeah. Another thing I learned as being a manager, even cultural differences could also exist. I didn't when I first started introducing myself earlier, I am from a different culture. I had to learn about like even corporate America, like how to adapt in this space. And again, being a manager, and even people on the East Coast is different from the West Coast. And so having that open communication is helpful. Like really understanding what like my mentees like career trajectory is, and like forms of communicating, like what is the best way to get on sharing, like sharing stories as well, like or finding connection is helpful. Well, in my experience anyway.
And constantly touch base with your people and ask them. I like to have planned innovation sessions. That's part of how I do it. Like, how can we do better, right? And have them pitch in ideas as to how we can continually grow. Another big one that a lot of leadership misses, and I mean at all levels of leadership that they miss, is tracking the effectiveness of what you're doing. Constantly coming back and going, "Is this actually working? Because we said it was gonna. Is it actually functioning?" And having good feedback systems, especially anonymous, so then people don't feel like they're tattling on anybody. And having good feedback systems, constantly reevaluating, and having people participate, because it gives them an opportunity to shine. It also gives them an opportunity to have more autonomy in their role, and it helps people grow into new positions.
Google Forms
Oh,
can work well, anonymous ones.
yes.
Because yeah,
Well,
like Catherine said, like some people, they people want a voice, right? And it can be anonymous. I mean, I hear something very subtle, but like language and like there's subtleties in people's tones of voice that you can tell if there's, I mean, I guess I can sometimes tell if there's like past trauma. They'll repeat themselves. They'll ask the same question over and over again for clarity. So like those are just like some subtle things. And if you pick up on them, as a manager, I'm not a manager, but as a leader in the space, whatever what have you, you want to be you want to have tremendous empathy. You want to deploy tremendous empathy. Um, and just, work with the person, communicate, create a rhythm, create like, and it can be something minute, right? Like, an interest inventory, like what do you like? What do you dislike? Just to kind of break the ice, and like you can create a rhythm every meeting just to like ease tension, whatever the case may be. But yeah, honestly, it's a lot of like people reading.
Yeah.
You gotta read your people.
And open discussion and feedback.
Yeah. Yep.
Definitely. You got to make sure what you're saying makes sense to both people. Um, so we're actually gonna move to Q&A from chat. Um, so I know Aza messaged me. So Aza, if you would like to send your question.
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I'm just going to read off my questions. So sorry. And I will also put in the chat, but so I'm getting into more so like the dental field and everything. So more so the healthcare field. And I haven't seen much accommodation for like diverse needs and even like shadowing or doing externships. There's not really, it seems that there's a huge barrier. So just how can dental offices or other healthcare facilities be more accommodating to diverse needs
Do you mean for employees or for patients?
for patients?
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. I actually recently have helped a clinic with this. So one of the things that we implemented is to have those questions on, and I can send it to you, Asa, if you want. In fact, let me drop my email real quick in the chat while I'm talking. The having the standard accommodations process where it's just, here are some things that we offer because we know it could be a thing, but also here's a fill in the blank. And have it be the first thing that the staff looks at before the person comes in. And you can, to Jacob's point, like Google Forms, if you want to make it electronic, however you like to do it, if you want to have a paper form, whatever, but make it something that everybody reviews before they see the patient so that everybody is on the same page. It should be part of the nurses communicating to the doctor and saying, or technicians, whatever the case is, saying, hey, just so you know, this person has this, yada, yada, yada. And looking into the standard and looking into accommodations, things that your environment may not be great for. So for instance, I have misophonia. Going to the dentist is hell on earth for me because misophonia means that certain sounds make your neural processes malfunction. Okay. So you can imagine dental office, not very good. So making sure to let people know that it's okay to bring in headphones and listen to music while you work, or that it's okay to have an earplugs. And a lot of these things they can provide themselves. You don't need to provide it, but just letting people know that it's okay because they may feel weird or they may think it's not allowed, that type of thing. So I'm happy to go back and forth with you individually as well, but that would be the first recommendation. Also watch for signs. So a lot of times you'll start to notice like, maybe somebody starts doing something like that because something isn't uncomfortable. Maybe they're squinting their eyes or rubbing their temples because the light's too bright. So just kind of, having a couple of classes for the staff on the things to observe, but the standard accommodations work.
And then, of course, naturally feedback, because you send that to as a follow-up or survey. I know sometimes people don't do them, but I actually do. I'm the parent who does. So a follow-up email, a follow-up text. My dentist office actually does that follow-up text where I just click it and does a survey and do a survey. So that's helpful. But again, the standard practice, like Catherine mentioned, will get you started. But once you start having like those patients who are often returning, getting feedback from them is helpful.
Thank you so
I
much.
actually used to do some recruiting for a dental staffing firm CEO. And that question has never come up, to be honest. But now you have my wheels turning. So excellent question.
Thank you so much. Just like getting into, because I apply to dental school next year and like just seeing it from an outsider looking in, because of course I would like my own practice in the future, but I haven't had the ability to even like see how that would work, especially because dentistry, you're like super close to your patient and it's just uncomfortable for like anyone. So just wanting to like start to understand those things before I get into that field to think about how you can connect the dots for everyone. So thank you so much.
And
You're welcome. And also just learning that some of the different diagnoses that are neurological may help, or that are neurodiverse. So learning a little bit more about autistic communication, learning a little bit more about ADHD communication, that type of thing. And I teach classes on that. I know Jacob does some talks on that. There are other wonderful educators. So again, when you email me, remind me about that and I'll point you to some resources. But that's another really helpful thing, because if you go in and you go, oh, I know what this is, and then you already know like how to kind of engage with it, that makes all the difference. So just taking the time to educate yourself.
Yeah, and I'm really happy you're thinking about this early too, because you might be one of the first to do it. Like so don't be afraid of that, because that could be a space that you're creating now, having people aware of making of thinking about universal design.
And I will tell you, I see in all the neurodivergent groups constantly people going, do you know a provider that's neuro-friendly? Do you know a provider? Constantly asking for that. And there's
And,
not always an option.
and guess
So that's
what?
really important.
Yeah, and
Well,
guess what? They if you become one of the first, they tell their friends about it. So perfect advertising right there.
yeah, yeah, and Asa, you mentioned, I think you want to start your own thing, like so yeah, I would 100% carve out a niche, right? Because think about how many dental offices. There's a million dental offices, right? But there's a great line by Oscar Wilde. It says, "Be yourself. Everyone else is taken." Right? Carve out your niche. You just spoke on a niche within an right with like within a niche. So carve it out and run with it.
And I will tell you, accessibility, even for the disability, like for the physical disability community, is a real problem. Dental offices are a nightmare for a lot of folks. They're not overly accessible. I have friends with cerebral palsy who it's just like they just can't even go. There's just not even a point. A lot of dental offices are not wheelchair accessible, which is insane, but it's true. um, so they're absolutely right. If you can carve out a niche as being an accessible practice, that will go very far. And even just while you're working with another dentist, say, "Hey, can I kind of promote as that I'm, I know the accessible. We can kind of come up with worded, verbiage and go back and forth, but kind of talking about, this is what I do and promoting yourself like on Facebook and all, it'll go far."
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Great question, Asa. I literally love that question because I struggle so much at the dentist's office, and so does my partner. My partner gets like really bad headaches every time they go because of their TMJ, and like we both have bone issues, and so teeth are bones. So um so just like the fact that you're thinking about that when like even like people who think about this every day are like, "Oh my God, good idea," is insane because like you go into the dentist office and you're like, "I'm uncomfortable. Everyone's uncomfortable," but we don't immediately think, "How can we make this
Exactly.
better?"
For sure. And just like wanting everyone to like feel as though they can even speak about it, because any healthcare profession, like even the doctor's office, things like that, you have no idea what's going in your mouth. You don't really know what's happening and everything. Like everything is unknown. So having something that is known and having that like connection with your dentist, because a lot of offices, like getting into this field, I'm just like, it's upsetting to see like so many offices are like the dentists are just in and out, like they want to make money, like it's greedy, like super greedy, like profession and everything.
Yeah.
And so like even insurances and like how much you spend is already ridiculous. So having there be a reason that you're spending that so that you actually are comfortable, because teeth are huge. Like the way you smile, the way you present yourself, like that's the first thing people see whenever they see you, and also feeling comfortable in that and wanting people to like connect with you, wanting to like be a little bit more outspoken or being a little bit more like open is huge. So just having that somewhat accessible, even
I love
so.
I love that so much. And full disclosure, I worked in oral care brands for 3 years, so I was very close to my dentist. I even did her website. But yeah, I worked on GSK like Sensodyne for enamel and all these things, and then also telling people in my life that about why am I buying premium toothpaste? But yeah, I'm so happy that you're carving out this space, like Jacob said, because like even working on these brands, I was like, wait, how do you make yourself unique? I was helping my dentist become unique, and from me just
Mhm.
knowing about oral care, and yeah, like it's so important in your life, like for health. So I'm really happy that you're thinking about that for people who really need it, and from different walks of life.
And I'll tell you too, real quick, one of the most impactful things that you can do in terms of accessibility and also for universal design is to have this is what's going to happen option for people. So these are the tools we're going to use on you. This is how a typical this is how a typical appointment flows. And it mentally prepares them so that they don't get the anxiety about it. And that works for all patients, by the way. If you let them know what's happening, their brain will decrease and they'll go, oh, okay, yeah, this is better. I know what's going on with me. Like I thought I've told dental professionals, like, if you stick something in my mouth and don't tell me what it is, I'll bite you. Like, you need to be telling me what's going on.
I like that. Also, it applies in other parts of health as well. So we have doctor discussion guides. So that might be something that you might be interested in. Like if a patient can come up to you and ask you a question, here's a guide to say, this is how you approach me for these questions. So that's also a great way to make them feel comfortable and get rid of that anxiety.
Yeah, I really appreciate all the ideas and everything, and I'll definitely try and email and also go to the LinkedIn. I need to set up a LinkedIn, but get everything set up. So thank you.
Of course, I'll add my email just in case.
Come to the Career Center. We can help you with your LinkedIn. Any other questions in chat?
Oops, design lady. Sorry, I picked the wrong email.
Nope.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I had. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you to our lovely panelists for having such an amazing discussion. I'm so excited to hear more and see this discussion go further. And yeah, thank you everyone.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Carolyn.
Thank you,
This hour,
Carolyn.
this hour went really quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it did. But it was such an amazing conversation. Like y'all went into so much depth. It was amazing.
Thank you. No, thank you for inviting us. And wow, learned a lot too. So yeah, really.
Yeah.
And congratulations, Ava. This is an amazing career path.
Yeah, congrats to you.
Definitely.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
thinking of next year for my panel stuff. I want accessibility in healthcare panel. I'm like, oh, I have
Yes.
so much.
And actually, this is one of the reasons why I started focusing it because so I work for a pharmaceutical advertising company and oh my goodness, I was like, wait, we work with people. Why aren't we connecting with humans?